Hello my friends, in this video we'll be taking a look at the autosomal DNA results, predicted phenotype traits, and even GED match results of 4 individuals from Chalcolithic Israel. Now, this is part 4 to my 4 video series. Watch the other 3 videos, please. I would really appreciate it if you did. You'd probably get a broader understanding of what I'm doing here if you watched the other 3 videos as well. Let's start with the first individual. The first individual is a woman. 1179-1179. Her mitochondrial lineage is T2. She is from Israel and she lived 45 to 35 centuries before the Common Era. The Common Era refers to the birth of Christ. This is where she is from. Let's begin with her autosomal DNA results with my trait predictor. Let's start with... Is this the sample? Yes. Let's start with NOSHACOT. So this is what she scores with NOSHACOT. With NOSHACOT, she seems to be scoring light brown eyes. Looks like she's got light brown eyes, black hair, and either light or intermediate skin tone. Her hair texture is actually kind of interesting. She's predicted to have kinky hair. That's unusual for somebody from Israel, but this is actually the only sample so far I've seen with kinky hair. I think there's going to be one more with kinky hair, and that's going to be all for kinky hair texture. Let's go ahead and check her phenotype SNPs. So she does not have blue apple type 2, she does not have BH3, no BH4. Without BH2, BH3, BH4, you're definitely going to be quite dark. So I'm guessing if you look at her OCA2 and HERC2 eye color calculator results, they're going to be very dark. Yes, it looks very dark indeed. It looks like a mixture of light brown and dark brown here. For the result, 47% light brown, 43% dark brown looks like it. Let's go ahead and check her polygenic risk scores. For the polygenic risk scores, she's got, looks like an average score for schizophrenia, an average score for type 2 diabetes, and an average score for Alzheimer's. For breast cancer, finally, we see a sensible result where somebody is scoring 0 risk variance for breast cancer out of 10. This is what I like to see. 6 risk variance for testicular cancer out of 8, which is kind of high. Actually, it's really high. We're gonna go ahead and check out these results and see what's up. So first of all, she's got AA in Komtsva-Met variation, which means she's Met-Met, which means she got the Warrior genotype. By the way, the Warrior genotype is very European. It's a very European thing to have. Not only is she a Warrior in Comt, she's also a Warrior in MAOA. She's double Warrior. Warrior in Comt and Warrior in MAOA. Definitely, she's got very slow dopamine reuptake. More dopamine accumulation in the system, advantages in attention and motivation, disadvantages in stress resiliency, stuff like that. Probably would make a very good driver. But I don't know if Warrior versus Warrior really affects how good you are at driving. I would suspect that it does. I'm not sure if it does really. She's got one derived no-go learner variant in DRD2 spirophorensin pro variation, which means intermediate number of dopamine D2 receptor sites in the brain and intermediate likelihood of schizophrenia. She does not have the A allele in TOC1, so she's got typical genotype in TOC1, slightly higher number of dopamine D2 receptor sites in the brain, slightly lower risk of stuff like ADHD and alcoholism. It looks like she's not genotyped for anything for lactose persistence, European lactose persistence. She's got 2 sociopath variants for reduced OXTR expression in OXTR. Looks like 2 sociopath variants here. In both of these variations, actually. For diabetes, nothing was found here. For hemochromatosis, nothing was found. For Alzheimer's, she's got this genotype, which slightly decreases the odds of Alzheimer's. We're going to skip myopia. Don't really care about that. She's got no micro-P, really good to see. Slightly higher IQ, better performing muscles, likely sprinter rather than endurance athlete. No shovel-shaped incisors, no East Asian EDAR, very good to see. Oh, I just can't stop being racist, can I? Yeah, I wasn't intending to sound like it's good to not have EDAR. I'm just saying she doesn't have East Asian EDAR. It's good that this is in her file. She's not an East Asian flusher, and not a carrier of cutaneous albinism type 1b, not albino. Although we don't really know because everything else is not determined. Everything else is not in the file. For familiar Mediterranean fever, it looks like she does not have any risk variance for that. For MTHFR panel, it looks like she's got normal genotypes. Basically, normal genotype here, normal here, normal here. Nothing too interesting here. For cancers, no risk variance for cancer, for breast cancer on the panel. She's got this genotype, which increases the odds of testicular cancer. And for leukemia, this genotype, which basically lowers the risk of leukemia a little bit. Very good. Very interesting to see. Let's go ahead and check what she scores for Eurogenes K13. This is what she scores for Eurogenes K13. I promised I'd show you GED Match. I'm showing you GED Match calculator on Admixture Studio, not on GED Match. This is a calculator that's on GED Match, but it's also on Admixture Studio. So it looks like she's scoring mostly East Mediterranean, a little bit of Red Sea, a little bit of West Mediterranean, nothing else. Very typical score for all of these people. They all score pretty much the same thing. It's very different from modern inhabitants of the Levant. Why? Because modern inhabitants of the Levant have Iranian Neolithic farmer and Caucasus hunter-gatherer admixture. These people don't have any. These people are just a mixture of Natufian and Anatolian Neolithic farmer. And this is what they score. It's getting modeled as a mixture of Yemenite Jew plus Sardinian, Yemenite Jew plus Algerian Jew. But really, these are all really bad models because all of these people have a very different scores. They scored differently from this individual. Now let's move on to the second individual. I1182. Also woman, mitochondrial lineage T1A. Let's go ahead and check what she scores with my trait predictor. Let's start with NOSHACOT, right? So with NOSHACOT, she is scoring, looks like intermediate between light brown and dark brown. Kind of 51% for light brown, 40.6 for dark brown. Everything else is really unlikely. Blue with the neighbor center, green, hazel, that's all kind of unlikely for her. She's probably got either light or dark brown eyes, really. For hair color, she's predicted to have black hair, very, dark hair color. For skin color, she's actually predicted to have light or fair skin, which is very interesting. It's kind of a combination of dark eyes, dark hair, but light skin. Interesting combination, kind of classical Hollywood pheno. And for hair texture, this is the second individual with kinky hair. So this is an atypical hair texture for somebody from the Levant. And also it's an outlier result, definitely an outlier result when you compare it to all the other individuals that I was doing this series on. Alright, so let's go ahead and see what about her genotypes. So it looks like she does not have blue eye haplotype 1, no BEH2, no BEH3, and no BEH4. None of the blue eye haplotypes she has. Let's go ahead and check her OCA2 and HERG2 eye color estimator. I'm predicting this is going to say mostly dark brown eyes. No, instead it says mostly light brown eyes, but dark brown eyes come second place at 37.7%. So yeah, quite dark eye color if you only take into account OCA2 and HERG2. Still quite dark eye color. Let's go ahead and check her polygenic risk scores. For the polygenic risk scores, she's got a pretty extreme result. Very high odds of schizophrenia, 6 times the average. And keep in mind that a lot of this result, most of the SNPs that go into this calculation, you will not see them on the screen. Most of them are behind the counter work, stuff you're not gonna see. Why do I do it this way? Because if I show you every single genotype that I use, number one, it's gonna be completely unreadable. Number two, it's gonna be really hard to get through. Number two, it's gonna be really hard for me to code because I'm gonna have to do a lot of busy work, and I don't want to do that. I like the way it is right now. It looks like she's also got slightly above average score for type 2 diabetes and below average score, well, pretty much average score for Alzheimer's. For breast cancer, she's got 4 risk variants out of 10, which is kind of atypical. I would say it's pretty atypical. And 2 risk variants for testicular cancer out of 6, which is pretty typical. So it's not a very high quality file. You can see only 10 variants were found for breast cancer, only 6 for testicular cancer. Not a very high quality file at all. But let's go ahead and check what their genotypes are. So it looks like she's got Val-Val genotype or warrior genotype in COMT. She's not genotyped for the main variation in MAOA that I look for, so we're just gonna have to go with the COMT genotype. She's definitely a warrior. When it comes to DRD2 spirophenantine pro variation, looks like she does not have any derived no-go learner variants there, so more dopamine D2 receptor sites in the brain. And what else is there? Nothing too interesting here, actually. Does not have long form 5-HTTLPR. Once again, she's got short form 5-HTTLPR. And average, or in this case, I guess the reality is slightly above average score, slightly above average risk of depression. It looks like she does not carry the European lactose persistence mutation. Pretty much very few people do. For OXTR and the empathy gene, it looks like she's got 2 sociopath variants in this OXTR variation, most likely not sub-Saharan African. The reason I say that is because this is one of the variations where it's very ethnically linked. Sub-Saharan Africans, for them to have 2 sociopath variants here is very, very, very uncommon. On the reverse, for East Asians to have 2 empath variants is also very, very, very uncommon, and white people are just kind of intermediate between the Africans and the Asians. So white people can have any genotype, but for sub-Saharan Africans, they tend to have empath variants here. For East Asians, they tend to have sociopath variants here. That's kind of how it is. For diabetes, it looks like she does not have type 1 diabetes. For hemochromatosis, it looks like she does not carry the C282Y hemochromatosis mutation. Really good. For Alzheimer's, it looks like slightly decreased risk of Alzheimer's based on this genotype, but it's not a particularly important genotype. The really important genotypes are these 2, which are not in this file. For myopia, we don't really care. No micropia, really nice. Smaller cranium and lower IQ, we don't really care about that. Better performing muscles, likely sprinter. Okay, likely has photic sneeze reflex, really cool. Likely no shallow-shaped incisors and not East Asian in ancestry. Once again, she does not have East Asian EZAR. And for albinism, none of this stuff is found on the file. For familiar Mediterranean fever, it looks like no risk variants out of those that are found on the file. And there's only 2, so there's not much. As I've said, it's a pretty low quality file. For MTHFR panel, it looks like it looks like very good genotypes, actually. Very good genotypes. Healthy. For cancer panel, we see 2 risk variants here in BRCA1, and we see this genotype, which is actually uncommon and leads to longer lifespan and chemotherapy being more effective. I'm not sure why I put this here. I guess chemotherapy is kind of has something to do with cancer, so that's why I put it here, but it doesn't really go into play for breast cancer or testicular cancer polygenic risk score. This genotype leads to lower risk of leukemia, really good. Alright, so that's pretty much all there is for our second individual. Let's move on to the third individual. Now we're moving on to our third individual, which is also a woman. The sample name is I1183. Also from the same location. Her mitochondrial lineage is actually R0A. Very interesting lineage. I haven't seen that before. Actually, I haven't seen most of these before because I don't really care. I don't really research mitochondrial DNA all that much. I don't really care about that stuff. Let's go ahead and check what she scores with my trait predictor. Let's start with NOSHACOT. So with NOSHACOT, she is scoring this. It looks like she is scoring mostly light brown eyes. There is a little bit of a chance of hazel and dark brown eyes as well. She's scoring mostly brown hair. However, there is a little bit of a chance for black hair as well. For skin color, she's scoring mostly light or fair skin. However, there is a little bit of a chance for intermediate or olive skin as well. And for hair texture, she seems to be scoring straight hair. So she's got straight hair. And this is, by the way, this is adjusted based on ethnicity. Let's go ahead and check her results for the OCA2 blonde hair and blue eyes panel. So she does not have BEH2. Wow, so she really doesn't have, there's not much genotypes here at all. Wow, it's kind of a low quality file. So the only information we have is that she doesn't have BEH2. Alright, let's go ahead and check her OCA2 and HERC2 eye color estimator. And if you only take a look at OCA2 and HERC2 to determine her eye color, you will arrive to the conclusion that she's got light brown or dark brown eyes. So she's got brown eyes. If you only take into account OCA2 and HERC2, she's got brown eyes. Alright, let's go ahead and check her polygenic risk scores. And for the polygenic risk scores, she seems to be scoring just a bit above average score for schizophrenia, above average score for type 2 diabetes, and it looks like nothing was found for Alzheimer's. So you see, it's a very low quality file. Unfortunately, it's not a very high quality file here. For the cancer section, she's got 2 risk variants for breast cancer out of 10, which is kind of typical, kind of average, and 0 risk variants for testicular cancer out of 4. That's actually really below average, so that's good. That's good to see. Is there anything interesting here? She does not have the A1 allele and TAC1, so she has normal amount of dopamine D2 receptor sites in the brain and slightly lower risk of ADHD and alcoholism. Just for reference, people who have the A1 allele and TAC1, in this case, the A1 allele corresponds to A genotype the A allele, and A2 allele corresponds to the G allele. Having A1 allele, for every A1 allele that you have, you get 20% less dopamine D2 receptor sites in the brain. Literally, it's a very steep decrease. So her not having any A1 alleles, it's very good to see. Very good to see. It looks like she's got 2 sociopath variants for reduced OXTR expression and lack of empathy. Very interesting. However, there's this genotype which is associated with increased OXTR expression and higher levels of empathy. So I guess it's not so black and white in this case when it comes to OXTR. It looks like she's got this genotype, which leads to a significant increase in the risk of type 2 diabetes. There's some other variations, there's some other SNPs that contribute to the score, to the polygenic risk score, besides those that are here on the screen. In fact, most that contribute to the score are not shown on the screen. For hemochromatosis, nothing is determined here. For Alzheimer's, nothing is found here. We're gonna skip myopia. Looks like she does not have micro P. Good. Increased cranial size and 2% higher IQ. Good. We don't really care about that though. Impaired muscle performance, likely endurance athlete rather than strength or power athlete. Alright. And 2 variants for increased pain sensitivity. Now this is uncommon. We don't see variants for increased pain sensitivity in this variation very often. It's not all that common. No shell-shaped incisors, not East Asian in ancestry. It looks like no East Asian EDAR. Typical, I guess, result for any West Eurasian or Sub-Saharan African. Nobody really besides East Asians has East Asian EDAR. I guess Native Americans do, but they have partial East Asian ancestry. So for drug response, it looks like she's more likely to gain weight if taking Zyprexa. For albinism, nothing here was found. For familiar Mediterranean fever, nothing here was found. For MTHFR panel, she's got this genotype in MTHFR, which leads to slightly, possibly impaired folate metabolism. For cancers panel, the only real genotype we see here is this one, where it leads to reduced testicular cancer risk for men. Really good. And actually, there's this genotype, which is kind of bad. It's kind of bad. So this genotype comes together with the increased risk for leukemia, which is not really good. Well, that's pretty much all there is for individual number 3. Let's move on to individual number 4. Now we're moving on to our last individual, which is I1184. This is also a woman, so it looks like all 4 of these people were women. She's got mitochondrial lineage T1. Once again, a lineage we've seen a lot. Also the same location, also the same time period. Let's begin with her results. Let's start with NOSHACOT. This is what she scores with NOSHACOT. It looks like she's scoring light brown eyes. Number 2 come hazel eyes. Number 3 come dark brown eyes. For hair color, she's predicted to have black hair. For skin color, it looks like she's got intermediate or olive skin, although skin color is kind of indecisive here because pretty much she's scoring all 3 categories, but the biggest category here is intermediate or olive skin. And for hair texture, she's scoring mostly wavy or curly hair, so I guess wavy or curly hair is her hair texture. And by the way, this is adjusted based on ethnicity. Let's go ahead and check what contributed to her phenotype. Result, OCA2, HERC2, blonde hair, blue eye panel. So it looks like she has darker pigmentation, no BH1. However, she's got this genotype, which is usually predictive of BH2. So I guess it's mixed. There's some genotypes for lighter pigmentation, some genotypes for darker pigmentation in her HERC2 and OCA2 region. I think because of this genotype, she might score a lighter color. If we look at her result with OCA2 and HERC2 eye color calculator, let's go ahead and look. I might be wrong, but I feel like she might have lighter color score. And she does score lighter color, lighter than expected, because there's pretty significant numbers for blue eyes and blue eyes with an amber center and green. Pretty significant numbers for hazel too. So it looks like if you only take into account OCA2 and HERC2, she's gonna score either light brown or hazel eyes, however with significant likelihood of blue with an amber center, and green. So I guess I was sort of right in that. It is kind of light, I guess, lighter than NOSHACOT results. Let's go ahead and look at polygenic risk scores. For the polygenic risk scores, it looks like she's scoring below average score for schizophrenia. Nothing was found for type 2 diabetes, which is really unusual. Usually something is found. And below average score for Alzheimer's. You know, as it is, I'm working with samples that are not really high quality. If you took a MyHeritage or 23andMe or Ancestry and you use my service, you're gonna have way better quality of a result than this, because these samples just aren't all that good. For cancers, she's got 3 risk variants for breast cancer out of 6, which is really high, and she's got 2 risk variants for testicular cancer out of 8, which is kind of normal, average, typical, whatever. Let's go ahead and check her genotypes. So it looks like she's between the warrior and the warrior genotype in COMT, intermediate, heterozygous genotype in COMT. However, warrior genotype in MAOA, so overall probably a little bit more warrior than warrior if you take everything into account. She's got 2 derived no-go learner variants in the DRD2 spirophyllantes in Pro, which is very European genotype to have. And it comes together with a significant reduction in the number of dopamine D2 receptor sites in the brain, a reduction in the risk of schizophrenia, and an increased likelihood of no-go learning, which is the ability to withhold a response when it's not warranted. So if you sit in front of a monitor, no-go learning would be people say, the researchers, for example, they say, we're gonna pay you if you press the button every time the green screen pops up or something like that, right? So being a no-go learner means you're likely to withhold a response when it's not warranted, which means when the green doesn't pop up, you don't press the button. On the other hand, if you're the opposite, if you are not a no-go learner, then you're gonna be like itching. You're gonna press the button even without anything popping up on the screen. That's kind of how it is. I don't know if I explained it well, but tell me in the comments, did I explain it well, or do I need to get better at explaining stuff like that? It looks like no A1 allele was in TOC1, so higher number of dopamine D2 receptor sites in the brain, slightly lower risk of ADHD and alcoholism, really good genotype, and does not carry European lactose persistence mutation, and it looks like genotype associated with decreased OXTR expression and lower levels of empathy, so less of an empath. For diabetes, it looks like 7-fold decrease in risk of type 1 diabetes, doesn't have type 1 diabetes. For Alzheimer's, it looks like this individual has got decreased odds of Alzheimer's based on this one genotype, which isn't that particularly important because these two are much more important in the risk score for Alzheimer's. These are APOE genotypes. Okay, this is crazy. This is crazy. I'm actually seeing somebody who's homozygous for the micro-P mutation, and they got two. They got 2 alleles. They got micro-P. It's a woman though, right? Yeah, it's a woman. Yeah, it's a woman. So I guess it's yeah. But that's really ouch. Once again, you know, I'm not sure if it's because if it's really genuine, if this genotype is genuine, or if it's some kind of a genotyping error, because it could be a genotyping error in my opinion. Impaired muscle performance, likely endurance athlete, likely no shovel-shaped incisors, and not East Asian in ancestry, so you see no East Asian EDAR. Once again, none of them have East Asian EDAR. Ironic, isn't it ironic that more of them have micro-P than East Asian EDAR? I don't know, I find it kind of interesting. Okay, so for drug response, it looks like more likely to gain weight if taking Zyprexa, and higher odds of meth-induced psychosis, probably shouldn't smoke meth. Alright, for albinism in the typical traits panel, not a carrier of albinism type 1b, really good. For familiar Mediterranean fever, nothing is found. For MTHFR, it looks like really good genotypes, really healthy genotypes, lower odds of various health issues. For cancers, once again we see this uncommon genotype, live 3 years longer and chemotherapy is more effective. I wasn't really sure where to put it. I didn't want to put it into the miscellaneous section because it kind of doesn't fit in, and you know, it's a different vibe from like micro-P or endurance athlete, stuff like that. It's a slightly different vibe, so I put it into cancer section because chemotherapy does have something to do with cancer. And leukemia, rare diseases, none of that stuff is found in the file. Well, that's pretty much all there is to it. Thanks for watching until the end. Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed it. And you can download all 4 samples in 23andMe format from link which is in the description of the video. Goodbye. Thanks for watching. Peace.